Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and number one, he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with two other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. And we tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's giving? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo. We got a busy day here at the bar room at 6:30 p.m. The Barfly Tailgaters are going to have a special show. That's because Andrew Billings called his cousin, said, I'm available today at 6:30. Got a day off, so I can talk football with you guys on the Barfly Tailgate. So he's going to be on at 6:30. Should be a fun show. This will be his third appearance with the Tailgaters. And then at 9 o'clock, I will be back here to talk about Hard Knocks, look at the roster cutdowns. And Vinny Parisi and Johnny Santucci will be my co-hosts. Vinny will talk a little bit about NHL, enough to bore the hell out of you non-hockey fans. And John will be here to tell fart jokes. So that's our lineup for today, but we start with the serious-minded, the progressive thinking, conservative of Chicago football. His name is Greg Gabriel. Greg Gabriel, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing real good. I like it like that. See, you can see a picture, and then I'm not moving. I could be like that guy on CNN, you know. Have no clothes on here, you know.
Exactly. Just don't play with yourself, and I'll be in for that idea.
You know, for some reason, people, my camera's not working. I don't know why. The audio's fine.
Yeah.
So you got to look at an ugly mug of myself. But hey,
that's right. Lenovo, right?
There's worse things in life, right?
That's right. It's a Lenovo computer, and Greg just got it 2 to 3 months ago, and the camera went haywire on him today. So we'll get that fixed. But in the meantime, you'll watch that beautiful image of Greg taken in his yard, and we'll talk lots of football. Greg, I want to start with, this is a bittersweet day. I mean, we all many of us lose sight of the fact that there's a lot of people. I think about almost 1,000 guys are going to be unemployed, at least for a little while.
Like 1,400 guys get cut.
Whew.
You know, and it's now a lot of them come back. There's 16 guys on each practice team, each practice squad. So a lot of them end up coming back. They have jobs, but for others, it's the end of the line. Mm-hmm. And it's a tough day. I've had to do this. Actually, the XFL was tougher than doing it in the NFL, because in the XFL, it was literally dead end street. If you weren't going to make their team, you had no choice, you know, because we were a minor league, and I had to do all that cutting then. And it was go get the kid, bring him into the room, sit down, talk to him, and cut him, you know. So it was like I was doing the job of 3 people, but, you know, we had limited personnel in the personnel department. So, but anyway, no, it's not fun. I do have one funny story.
Yeah.
that goes back to, and actually I wasn't there, but I was told by the person himself.
Okay.
This was 2 years before I got there. Jimmy Burt, who was a Pro Bowl nose tackle for the Giants back in the Parcells years, for our first 2 Super Bowl wins, and a fellow Buffalonian, actually from Orchard Park. How about this? Jimmy Burt's high school team, Orchard Park Central High School, had 3 NFL players in one class.
Ooh, in one class. Whoa.
One class. Jimmy Burt, Craig Wolfley, who was a Pro Bowl guard for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the other guy got in and out of some camps. He went to Penn State. I can't remember what his real name was, but he became Lex Luger, the wrestler.
Oh, I know. I've heard that name. Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, that was 3 really good football players on one high school team in Western New York. That was something. But anyway, Jimmy went on to play at the University of Miami, and he's only 5'11", about 260. So, he wasn't drafted. He was a free agent. Worked his ass off in camp. This was 1981, and he's positive he's going to get cut. So, cut day comes. He barricades himself in his room. In the hotel room they had, actually it's a dorm room at where were we at there? At Pace University. Okay. And he's laying there, knock on the door. He thinks the knock is the Turk coming to get him, right? Doesn't answer it. 15 minutes later, knock on the door. He doesn't answer it. He's hiding under the bed. He says, if they want me, they're going to have to come in and drag me out. So finally, Parcells comes to the door, knocks on the door. Bert, open the fucking door. So Bert gets up, goes, where the hell are you? You're late for practice. Now it's costing you money. Ooh. That's how he got me. But
that's a great story. That is great. You sound just like Parcells too when you said that line. Fantastic. All right, we are past the 3 p.m. Central deadline, and so that means the Chicago Bears have had to at least make this first round of cuts. I understand, according to Cliff Victoria, it looks like Kevin Hardy made the team. What do you think about that, Greg Gabriel?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I want to know, that I had, by my count, I think I was at around 60 players. Mm-hmm. So that meant 7 had to go. Now, Bigsy put out, and a shout out to Bigsy. Great job today. I mean, he had names really quick. Mm-hmm. He's got super connections, and he generally gets it from agents. He had names really quick before anybody else. And the other guy was Aaron Wilson, who I used to work with at the National Football Post. So Aaron and I go back about 15 years, maybe 12 years, but good guy. And he works down in Houston for a radio station down in Houston and covers the Texans, but he does a lot of national stuff too. So Aaron had a bunch of stuff nationally. Bigsy had a bunch of stuff locally. But there's still some names, and there's an overload at some positions. Bigsy said there's going to probably, the way he hears it, 3 guys are going on IR. 2 will go on today that can be brought back, because you can designate 2 before the 53-man cut down to come back. And then 1 will go on IR tomorrow to come back. 1, it looks like, is going to be the long snapper. Which means the Bears are good right now, because they cut the backup long snapper, are going into this week without a long snapper. They either bring back the guy they just cut, or they sign somebody, hold mass tryouts, or maybe they already have, but they could have brought in guys today for all we know, and sign one of those guys. But, I think it wouldn't surprise me if they use the guy they had in preseason because of his familiarity with everything. But if the regular long snapper has to go on IR, he's going to miss 4 games. So you got to make sure you're going to have, the right guy. And we're talking about Patrick Scales. So that's going to be an interesting scenario, at least for the first 4 weeks, if he in fact goes on IR. Borum got hurt in the last game. Was an ankle, I think. How severe is that? If you notice, they never said a word about that. Even the day after, or 2 days after, they played the game Thursday and Saturday. Flus does a presser, and somebody asked him, and he goes, "Well, I don't know about that one yet." Totally avoiding it. So, what happens in that situation remains to be seen. They're heavy at running back as the roster is set right now, which gives me another story to tell. So this morning, I get a text from a guy I've known a long time. I'm not going to mention his name. And I didn't know he was back working in the league as a consultant. And he says, "Hey, buddy, hope this finds you well. Is there a chance Velus Jones gets released?" Now, he doesn't say he's working for anybody then.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So I sent back, I go, "I don't know, but I'm cautious." I go, "I don't know. He's played really well at running back, so I kind of doubt it. Coaches seem to like him, but as we both know, anything can happen. Wouldn't surprise me either way," which I thought I was being, fair to the middle. He says, "Gotcha, thanks. I just looked at our last text. Hope you're feeling better," which is about my lungs. I said, "I'm fine. I'm good." He goes, "I took a full-time role with the Saints front office." I wasn't going to mention the name. So, doing a bit of everything. I'll probably regret it about mid-November, he says with a laughing face. So when I got that, I go, okay. So they want to know if Velus is going to be available so they can either claim or trade before.
Interesting.
So I send out a text to
anybody I know.
some Ryan Poles. And let me get that one. I said, FYI, this was at 8:19 this morning. FYI, Randy Mueller is doing work for New Orleans as a consultant. He's in New Orleans right now. He just texted me asking if I thought Velus was going to get cut. I told him I have no idea. And he sends back, "Velus isn't going anywhere."
There you go. So you knew that. You knew that was going to happen even before anybody else. Velus Jones is not going anywhere. This is according to Ryan Poles himself and a message that he sent to his buddy Greg Gabriel. So pretty cool. And he probably appreciated the intel that you shared with him. And so now nobody else is ever going to call you again.
I wasn't going to mention either name, but I did. I'm in my 70s, stuff happens.
It happens. It happens. Sometimes your wife finds out you're cheating on her. It happens.
Well, I know she doesn't have to worry about that.
I love it. All right, we just got news here, and we're going to go over the cut list in a moment. But J2K says that according to a report on X, the Bears have terminated the contract of fullback Kari Blasingame as a vested veteran, but the plan is to bring him back. I think Brad Bix may have tweeted this out as well. Team is expected to re-sign him on Wednesday for the same amount. So, Greg, if that is in fact true, explain to us why they would go through these machinations.
Well, you want to get somebody on IR, which, as I said earlier, Big said 2 guys are going on today, one's going on tomorrow. So that means you're carrying a guy, and you can, with a vested vet like Blasingame, you can cut a deal with them. Hey, it's a numbers game. We'll cut you today, sign you tomorrow. We're not changing anything. Okay, so if he's a second or third year guy, you can't do that because somebody could claim him.
Okay.
But in the position he's in, you go to him. If he's good, he's good. And then so you see that happen a lot this time of the year. The other thing you'll see too is there'll be a couple guys, and this happens across the league. There'll be some vested vets cut. And then after the first game or after the second game around in there, they'll be brought back to the roster. And the reason being is if you're on the roster, a vested vet is on the roster game one. It's like I repeat this every year. My public service announcement, I think, for the beginning of the season. If you're on the roster at the beginning of the year, a vested vet, for game one, your pay is guaranteed for the rest of the year. So if your salary's 1.5 or 2.2, whatever it is, you're getting every dime of that. Now, there is an offset. If you end up going somewhere else, you get cut. You don't, after game one, and then you go somewhere and say Cincinnati picks you up or something like that, then there is an offset that comes off of that, contract. So, you can get out of paying some of it, but that full salary is getting paid. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So what teams will do to circumvent that is cut him, bring him back after the first game, because after the first game, now his salary's not guaranteed. It's week to week, like the younger players. Okay. And so that way they have a little bit more control over, when and if the guy's on the roster, depending on situations. And again, that happens a lot around the league.
By the way, news coming in from all of our great fans in the chat. A.J. Dillon for the Green Bay Packers, their backup running back for the last few years, has been put on season-ending IR. He didn't have much of a camp. I think he's just been suffering from some knocks, but maybe he suffered a more serious injury, and so he is indeed out for the season. Victor Tangent has a really good question. We don't know about Hardy yet, whether he's made the team. If he has made the team, do you think that Dominic Robinson then is the out guy, or could this team potentially carry 6 defensive ends?
I can't see that. And in fact, I find it hard to believe they'd keep a total of 9. I thought the number would be 8, 4 and 4, because Walker can play inside or outside. So really with him, you've got an extra defensive end and an extra defensive tackle, but in theory, you want to keep your best 53. And if they think Hardy's one of the best 53, then, and he sure as hell earned it during the preseason, 3.5 sacks, a bunch of tackles for loss, then hey, the job is to go to camp and earn a spot. If anybody earned a spot, he did. Yeah,
I agree wholeheartedly with you. Now, there have been some interesting defensive end names released. I won't go through them, but man, does it seem like there was a wealth of defensive end prospects available that just, are probably not going to be on practice squads for those teams if they clear waivers, and they likely will, because I think maybe I heard this from you, but general managers many times fall in love with the players that they acquired themselves, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know them. So, those are the guys you're going to keep. And it's tough. Like let's go to Velas. Ryan spent a 3rd round pick on him. He's got to be convinced there's nothing there for him to cut him.
Yep. And
he showed something in the preseason after they moved him to running back that there might be something there for him at that position.
Yeah, I mean, the key word in the league the last few years has been versatility. And so if you've got a guy who has experience at playing the wide receiver position and now is showing great promise at the running back position, now his runs were against 2nd and 3rd stringers, but just in the mechanics of his running, his cutting ability, him running up, with his eyes down the field. So he made those cuts. And, Mike Ditka used to yell at Neil Anderson, "You're putting your head down. Where are you? How do you know where you're going?" And Velus wasn't making that mistake. He was picking up some nice yards. So frankly, I'd be surprised if they gave up on Velus Jones Jr. Let's take a look at the players on offense that I know at this point, the information that we've collected, Greg and myself, that we know have been cut for the Bears offense. And so we'll start with the quarterbacks. Greg, there's no surprise there that Brett Rippon and Austin Reed didn't make the team, but do you expect either one of them to be a practice squad candidate?
I'm taking a shot in the dark, and I'm saying Reed's going to be brought back to the practice squad. And the reason being is the way that Tom Pelissero worded his post when he put out that Rippon had been released. And he said, he's a vested vet. He's probably going to get some interest from some other teams, which means, the agent asked him to do that. But it said, he's free to start to work out a deal right now. Well, if they had told him, because generally speaking, when you cut a guy and you want to bring him back to the practice squad, you tell him that right away.
Mm-hmm.
You say, "Hey, Aldo, I'm sorry, but we don't have space for you right now, but we want to bring you back tomorrow and put you on the practice squad." Softens the blow. Obviously, you're not going to make as much money, the guy, but he's still there. He could get brought up to the varsity at any time. He's an injury away from getting up to the varsity 53. So, and the money on the practice squad isn't chump change. It's well over $200,000 a year if you're on the team for the full season. I mean, that's more than the minimum pay was not that long ago. So, that being said, if they had told him he was going to be on the practice squad, I think Pelissero said it was expected that he'd be brought back tomorrow on the practice squad. But when he didn't say that, to me, that was the red flag, saying they said it to Reed and they didn't say it. And I could be totally wrong. I'm guessing here, but you see enough of these things over the years, then you get a general idea of what they really mean, when you go between the lines.
Yep. And Bushhog says Kari getting cut is big, but as you may have just joined us, Bush, there is a possibility Kari is coming back according to multiple reports.
Yeah, they said he's coming back. They're just keeping him on. Whoever's going on IR tomorrow will be, his spot on the roster will be Kari Blasingame.
There you go. All right. Some of the other names. Oh, by the way, before we get to these other names, now years ago on the practice squad, players had eligibility like 2 years, maybe 3 years. That rule is now gone.
Now, wait a minute. Say that again.
On the practice squad, for many, many years, their players only could be put on the practice squad. They had a year or two of eligibility, and then after a while, they had to be released. Has that rule changed now? Can a veteran
Yes,
a 5-year, 7-year veteran make the practice squad? Wow,
you can have a 15-year vet on the practice squad, but you're limited in the number.
That's a win for the players union. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's and here's another thing. Now you don't want to spend extra money on practice squad guys, but the practice squad money, the salary is a minimum. You can pay the guy more. You can negotiate the salary. So in other words, well, if so-and-so wants him on their practice squad too, you give him an extra $1,500 a week, and then maybe we got a deal.
That happened. I want to say was it Sam Mustipher, because the Patriots offered him more money, and he elected to stay with the Bears because that's my faulty memory at work there. So don't take that to the bank. Anyway, Ja'Tyre Carter. We all at a certain point started to really like this guy, and then he disappeared. Were you surprised that the Bears have essentially given up on him? Unless, of course, he's back on the practice squad.
Well, it didn't surprise me that he was getting cut based on when he was coming in the game. That doesn't always mean a lot, but it means something. There's a little thing though, on a little side note to this, and then Saturday he put out a little cryptid post, said blessed. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I missed that one.
So I don't know what that means, and Sunday they mentioned that, he had been released.
Yeah.
So did they tell him that he's on Saturday, that they were releasing him on Sunday and they wanted him back on the practice squad? I don't know. I'm guessing. We talked about it late last year. We talked about it earlier in camp. We talked about it during free agency. Something is missing that none of us know about. This is the guy that started games because of the Nate Davis injury at the beginning of last year and the personal issues that Nate Davis was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't play. And Carter actually played pretty good. And then, but by the end of the season, the last couple of games, he wasn't even dressing. And so, like, where's the disconnect? What happened? And I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if anybody does, because nobody ever asked that question. But it's just an interesting thought. But they have a couple guys that had strong preseasons, and it was good competition. That Murray kid can play both guard spots, but Carter can play both. And Murray's pretty physical. I did some research on him because they started talking about him in the media.
On Bill Murray?
Yeah. And he's a guy that at his pro day did 30-something reps. I mean, his workout was off the charts. And he was a defensive lineman. He came into the league as a defensive lineman. And he was on the practice squad with New England for a few years as a defensive lineman. Then they moved him over to offense last year, couldn't make the team. And I don't know if New England wanted him back on the practice squad or not, but the Bears brought him on theirs right away last year. Or maybe after week 1 or something like that. But he was on the practice squad here last year. And, maybe might have been that they just saw something in this guy with his athleticism, because I mean, really, really good athleticism that they like. And being that he was a defensive lineman in college, and not a bad one either. Maybe he's got that defensive line mentality on the offensive line. I know a center back had that type of mentality by the name of Olin Kreutz.
He's a memorable guy.
So it's whether he ends up being here, I'm sure maybe before we get done, they'll release the rest of the names.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just got a new name that I'm adding to the graphic there. It is tight end Brendan Bates has been released, and that's according to Evie and Patrick Finley. So it looks like Bill Murray is going to make this team.
Well, that's still not enough. Bill Murray's a guard, and Bates is Brendan Bates is the tight end.
Right.
So two different positions.
Yeah, memory problems.
You were thinking of Ryan Bates, I think.
That's exactly who I'm thinking of. Who is headed to the?
I don't know if he's headed IR, but he could be. He's got a shoulder injury, and like I say, Batesy said 2 guys are going to IR today. Who those 2 are, remains to be seen. But they're going to be out 4 weeks. That's a for sure.
Mm-hmm. Did you like the tight end Bates?
Yeah, I thought he really kind of jumped out in the preseason. But he's young. They're keeping Mercedes over him for the leadership. He'll be back tomorrow, unless somebody claims him.
All right. Before we start looking at guys we know for sure have been cut on the defensive side, I wanted to ask you about the tight ends, Tommy Sweeney and Steven Carlson. Both of them flashed in preseason games and at practices, according to reports. I never went to any of the practice games, so I can't confirm that myself. And then wide receiver Colin Johnson had an outstanding Hall of Fame game, but he's on the cut list. And I thought that they were going to keep him just because he's such a good blocking wide receiver. But there's depth and talent on this squad. So
he missed 3 games. I mean, he had a big game in the Hall of Fame game, and then he had an injury. I don't know they don't tell you what the injuries are. They don't have to.
Yeah.
So he has an injury. Somebody wrote this morning he's healthy now, but they cut him. But I expect him to be brought back to the practice squad, and maybe he's not quite up to par as far as being in shape. And like I say, he missed 3 games. But that's if a guy goes down, that's a good guy to bring off the bench.
Absolutely. All right, let's head over to the defense. And by the way, somebody mentioned, is it true that there's a rumor that Larry Borum was traded to the Patriots? Well, Greg, we heard that rumor before, his last preseason game where he got injured, and we don't know the extent of the injury. So, have you ever been in a situation late in preseason and you've been getting calls about a particular player, and then he played one of the preseason games and now the trade is dead because that player got hurt? That ever happened to you?
That happens. And generally, if you here's the thing though. If you got a trade lined up for a guy, you don't play his ass.
Yeah, right.
Just for that reason.
Bubble wrap him.
Yeah.
It's on the mount. Don't get her at the airport. Kadarius Toney, Adam Schefter saying, is being released by the Chief. The speedy wide receiver he was supposed to take over.
He is. He's a head case.
It's a head case. He has no hands.
He can't catch cold in winter. I mean, come on.
I love it. All right, let's take a look at what we know of the defensive cuts so far. At the defensive line, Michael Dwumfor, Jalen Hutchings, who was just acquired recently. Everybody was excited by him, and they were excited about Keith Randolph being drafted out of Illinois. He's gone. Byron Cowart and Khalid Kareem, those are the defensive lineman cuts. And then you got Jones, White, Moala, the linebackers, and that defensive back, according to what we know now, Quindell Johnson, Douglas Coleman going to IR, Adrian Colbert, Leon Jones, Roy Torrance, and Greg Stroman. Greg Gabriel, are you surprised to see Greg Stroman on this list?
No, he was on the original practice squad last year and then got brought up. And then you look at some of the guys in preseason. Josh Blackwell played really well, who can back up at that nickel position, and so can Reddy Stewart. So one of those two is going to be there as the backup nickel. There's still an overload of the defensive backfield. There's with Bates getting cut, there's no longer an overload at tight end. There's 3. So you got 3 tight ends and you've cut the fullback. So you got, how many running backs we got here? 5?
Yeah, I count 5.
There's DeAndre, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson. Well, Travis Homer's still around too.
Oh, that's
and
right.
Bayless. So, somebody's going in that group.
Yeah.
It's like I said, there's still names to be released, to us that guys have been let go that nothing's happened to yet. But I would expect in this group here with that Hutchings will be brought back because of the way he's only here for 2 weeks of the way he played. And I said that last week. I said I don't expect him to make the 53. I expect to have him, just so he gets more time here, make sure that he's ready to go, at least spend a few weeks on the practice squad. He went in and he made some plays again the other day against Kansas City. So, and at that point, because it was a Thursday game, he really only had like 3 practices. Yet he goes into a game and kind of stands out, which tells me a little bit about the kid. He's got a good motor. He works hard. So I'd be kind of surprised that if he's not on the practice squad tomorrow. I expect Carl Jones to be on the practice squad. far as the other guys, maybe Randolph, but I would expect yes, Randolph, if they're keeping all those edge guys, because then you don't need another edge guy. But it would not shock me even though they traded for Chris Williams the other day, that they make another move at defensive tackle, and whether it's a waiver acquisition or the signing of a vested vet that gets cut today, in which case you could theoretically sign the guy tonight.
Greg, the questions are piling up, but before we get there, I got a question regarding those new acquisitions for the Bears. What do you know about the player you just mentioned, the defensive tackle?
I called or texted Ballard about it because he spent a few years in Indy, and actually 3, I think, 2021, 22, and or 21 or 22, and said, great kid, try hard guy. He goes, they let him go last year, and then he was on 2 different practice squads. But Chris said it was all in front of him. Great kid, try hard guy. Then you watch him in camp, the 2 games with Cleveland. So it's game 1 and game 2. He didn't play in game 3. He had 2 sacks, and he was playing both the 3 technique and defensive end. He was playing right defensive end. So here's a guy that's 305 pounds who was playing the edge and getting off the ball pretty darn good. He had, in the one game against Minnesota, he had 2 sacks, and the last one was only with a couple minutes left in the game. It was for a safety. So, and he chased, now the safety was a rollout to the left, and he was coming from the opposite side and caught the quarterback from behind. So there was some hustle involved too. So he's a big, strong kid, real long arms. Interesting guy, young guy who plays hard. Flus had him as a rookie in Indy, so he already knows him. So, it's a depth piece. You're expecting him to come in and play 20 snaps a game, and get a good 20 snaps out of him, as part of the rotation.
Yeah. Sports Chicago style. Bears are expecting to place defensive end Jacob Martin on short-term IR. He suffered a toe injury in the first day of practice in full pads. This means he could potentially return before week 5. He was very impressive, and then the old injury crap popped up on him.
Yeah, so, that one I kind of expected, because he was a guy that they really liked coming into camp, based on what he did during the offseason. And undersized guy, just like he's about the same size as Ngakoue, but faster. Ngakoue was a 4'7" guy. This guy's a 4'5", 4'6" guy, but about the same height. Arms are a little bit longer, fast. He's played in this game, played for Lovey in Houston in 2021, had his best year as a rotational guy, had 4.5 sacks. So he's a guy who can come off the bench, give you 25 snaps, and give you something. Now, is he? I don't see him as a starter. He's got to prove to be a starter, and we haven't seen one down yet, and in pads either of the Bears. So, it's a little bit of uncertainty there, but they like what they saw earlier.
Good. Let's get to some of the questions that are piling up here. Before the show even started, Greg Maliska asked this question: would Poles be dumb enough to trade Tyson Bagent? No, he's not going to trade Tyson Bagent.
You see some of these stupid rumors that get on the internet. Like, there must have been, my homepage on my laptop is Microsoft News, and I got to find a way to get rid of that. I'm not,
yes, I'll find out.
Not good enough on the technology end to figure that out. Yeah. But anyway, it comes up and it's got all these stupid sports articles, a lot of them about the Bears, and you see some of this shit, and it's like, where does this stuff come from?
People trying to get clicks and make shit up. It's unbelievable.
Why would they trade the guy?
Yeah,
He had a hell of a preseason. You've got to have a good backup. Right. And last year as a rookie, now mind you, he played Division II football. Started 4 games, won 2 of them. When Justin was hurt, and he's only going to get better.
Yeah,
and he's a workaholic as far as his work ethic, and a smart kid. He's a kid that in another 2 years, he's not going to break the bank, but he's probably going to get $7 million to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the question that I like regarding Bagent, because it's a plausible hypothetical. Bagent, says Bush Hog, yes. Bagent for a third. You don't think Poles would do it? Yes, but I don't think anybody's going to offer a third for Bagent right now.
No,
not going to happen.
Number one, he's not. But get it out of your head. Who's going to be your backup?
Yeah, right.
Rippon is not. You want to have somebody that's similar to your starter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got a starter in Caleb. Very athletic, strong arm guy. What's Rippon? Not athletic and no arm strength. Right. He's the total opposite. What's Bagent? Very athletic, good arm strength.
Right. And Zach says, out of fairness to Bagent, if you don't have a plan to start him and he has a shot with another squad, let's stop doing that. We did that for Justin Fields.
They own him for 4 years.
Exactly. You got his trade value will increase in time because the kid's going to get better and better. Watch.
Well, what you'd like to do in a theoretical world is maybe trade if you can get another backup. And let's say Caleb gets hurt and he's got to play a couple games again this year.
Mm-hmm.
And he does well again. Well, now somebody's going to pay for his ass, but you do it in year 3 or you do it in year 4. Year 4 is the best one because after year 4, he's a free agent. Now, because he was an undrafted free agent, he's going to be a restricted free agent after his 3rd year. Okay, he doesn't get he didn't get a 4-year contract. He got a 3-year deal. So there could be somebody who could, put in an offer sheet, like the Bears did with Ryan Bates.
Yes.
But in that case, because you get to tender the guy, you can tender him a 1st-round pick, second, you can tender him at different levels and pay him. And that's what you're going to get back in a draft choice if you lose them to another team.
Yep.
So there's ways they can get something out of it without having to trade them, early. But I would not expect, possibly next year, but probably more like the year after.
Mm-hmm. I just, finally, this team is acquiring depth, and it's good depth. And I'm like, please don't even think about trading some of this depth away unless you're going to be wild out of your socks, unless the team trading is going to overpay.
Yeah, I mean, somebody have to see. I'm going to be ridiculous here. A 1, it's like he's your depth. Something happens to your starter, you can win with him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why do you get rid of him? The whole idea is to acquire talent, not give it away.
Right. Speaking of giving away talent, the Bears placed offensive lineman Larry Borom on IR, designated to return. So that is good news. The right ankle injury he sustained in Kansas City last week is not season ending.
It's probably a high ankle sprain, and probably, they didn't say what it was, but I assume it's some sort of ankle sprain. So if he's the other guy on IR, those two can come back, and that means if Patrick Scales can't go this week, he goes on IR tomorrow.
Greg, should I totally expunge from my mind the thoughts that I had in that last preseason game when Borum went down and when Wheeler went down. I said to myself, "Oh, these guys are faking injuries because they're going to go on the IR." The Bears have pleaded with those two players, please get injured, pretend to get injured. What do you think?
Borum, I knew was legit. Actually, both I knew was legit. You could tell by the way Wheeler was walking, and I suspected right away it was an ACL, just the way he was walking. And so, when it came out the next day that it was an ACL, it didn't surprise me. I'll tell you, now, if he would have finished that game, would have been healthy, that would have been an interesting scenario today. What would happen?
Yeah, indeed.
Because that kid can really run.
He can. Man, I love that kid. When I first heard that he was coming to the Bears as an undrafted free agent, I did some research on him. I said, "Holy cow, he's very, very smart. He's, incredible speed, returned 2 kicks. This could be a sleeper running back, so I'd love to see Wheeler back."
I'll tell you what, he wants to go to medical school.
Right.
Howard's a pretty darn good school.
Mm-hmm.
So the kid is I've been there 3 or 4 times, and I'll tell you, the kid's sharp, and then when you hear him talk, you know how sharp he is. And it's too bad for him, but he's still. Now, what happens? Does he get the full $800 and some odd or $795,000? Maybe. And that depends on if he's got a split contract. And that happens a lot with free agents that you have in there for the first 2 years of the contract. It's a split, meaning if you go on IR, you're getting a lesser amount. It's more than half, but it's not the full amount. So let's just say I'll throw the number out, and I'm not, I don't know what an accurate number is because it has to be written in the contract. But let's just say it's $450,000. Okay. That's still a lot of freaking money for a 22-year-old kid.
Hell yeah. So that's a lot of money for a 66-year-old man.
I hear you.
Sports Chicago style is doing a great job in the chat. He is telling us that 10 offensive linemen are now on the squad, at least as of today, and that's Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright, Karan Amagaji, Coleman Shelton, Doug Kramer Jr., Tevin Jenkins, Nate Davis, Bill Murray, Ryan Bates, and Matt Pryor. No surprises there, right?
One, Kramer.
Okay. Good.
I thought Carvin outplayed Kramer in the preseason. But it surprised me on Thursday that Kramer started the game and not Carvin, because Carvin was in front of him before. Now, maybe it's knowing the assignments and everything else, and so you trust him from that standpoint. I don't have the answer to that. But Carvin was pretty physical, so I expect him to be back. I also, what you see today as a 53-man roster is not going to be the 53-man roster on opening day.
Yes.
Okay. There could be claims tomorrow, which, you put the claims in, you're going to know by 11 tomorrow who you got. You got to put the claims in by 11, and you're really you put them in, say, by 10. And if you got a guy, the league calls you and tells you. You might, now that the Bears are 9th in priority, where last year they were 1st. So they got anybody they wanted. Now there's 8 teams in front of them. You're still going to get a majority of the guys you want, but you only want upgrades. You're not going to make a claim to make a claim. It's got to be an upgrade. And there could be a vested vet out there that you want. The vested vet, you can make the deal with them right now. Get them on the phone, make the deal. It's after 3:00. You can, he's free. The kid is, or the player is free to make a deal. So I expect there to be probably a few, we know Blasingame coming back, but probably a couple more that aren't on the roster today. And then some of these guys will end up, on the practice squad. There was a center that I don't know if the Redskins ended up cutting him, but they were trying to trade him. And he was like their 3rd round pick a year ago. Can't think of his name. Is from Arkansas. And
yeah, I know.
So, who is it? I think Swifty, put out a post and he said, along the lines of, "Come on, Poles, get on." But being that he got a whole new regime in Washington, so they got no allegiance to somebody who was drafted last year. So it'll be interesting to see if he ends up on the waiver wire or, Stromberg. Yeah. If he ends up on the waiver wire or, and even if he does, he might not make it to the Bears. Mm-hmm. I don't know how well the guy played. I don't even know how much he played last year.
Yeah, I know around draft time he was highly regarded by a bunch of
I don't remember what I had on him last year, in all honesty.
All right, let's take a look at the defensive linemen. I think, according to Evie, Sports Chicago Style might have gotten these from Jacob Infante, so I want to attribute it to the proper person. 10 defensive linemen earned roster spots in Montez Sweat, Darrell Taylor, DeMarcus Walker, Daniel Hardy, Austin Booker, Dominic Robinson, Jervon Dexter Sr., Andrew Billings, Chris Williams, and Zach Pickens, who got hurt in that.
Yeah, I thought Pickens could be a guy that goes down. He could still go down tomorrow.
Exactly. It's not over yet.
And the only thing I know is it was, I think, right before the Kansas City game when they were talking to the media was talking to the coordinator. So it might have been Wednesday or something last week. And Eric Washington voiced a little concern about Pickens as far as, we don't know how serious it is, and didn't say what it was, but and how long he's going to be out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that didn't. So when they made the trade for Williams, that didn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, when you look at it, there's only 4 defensive tackles. But again, it wouldn't surprise me that if somebody comes available, what they think is a good player who's an upgrade and a fit within the scheme, that he's on the roster tomorrow, and then maybe Pickens goes on IR. I mean, I don't know, or maybe one of those defensive ends goes on IR, gets not IR with the defensive ends. None of them are hurt.
Right.
Gets cut and brought back to the practice squad.
Okay. Let's move on to the defensive backs. According to Sports Chicago Style, they have kept 10 defensive backs currently on the 53. Blackwell, Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson.
Let's see, some of these guys, they're if you got 10 offensive linemen, 10 defensive backs, and 10 defensive linemen, some of these guys aren't on the 53.
Yeah.
They're like over the limit here.
Yeah. Yeah, we got 20 guys in those 2 position spots. Yeah. And I look at this list of defensive backs. They all are playing very well. This is the deepest part of the team. This is awesome. I mean, maybe, the 4 safeties, Brisker, Byard, Hicks, and Owens, they're not quite as strong as the cornerbacks, but overall, this is an A.
I'll tell you what, now, Owens only played, in 2 games, played pretty good. Hicks played pretty good in the first 2 games. I don't think he played as much in game 3 and 4.
Yes.
Played some. The corners were playing really good football. Wait a minute, we got a name missing here, I think. Let me look here. Blackwell, Gordon, Jalen Johnson. Stewart's name's not in there.
Oh, and then J2K says that Stewart made the team. Bears cornerback Reddy Stewart was among the players waived today.
Okay.
J2K. So he's definitely a practice squad guy.
And well, you know, it wouldn't shock me if he got claimed because of the way he played. But here's the thing, and why I always thought he might be more practice squad than as good as he played.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at his workout numbers, very average. He's a 4.5. He ran twice, like 4.54, 4.57. And then his jumps and stuff they're all in that average category. And so you don't see the explosiveness that the other guys have. And when you look at the numbers of some of those other guys, they're like off the chart type numbers.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, he does have a nose for the ball.
There's no question about it.
Interception at the goal line. All right, let's take a look at some of the other players who are on the squad at the linebacker position. Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Jack Sanborn. I'm going to try this. Amen Agbag. No, once I get to that third syllable, I always trip up. Amen and
Bimiga.
Bimiga, Agba Bimiga, and Noah Sewell. A lot of people in the chat are scratching their heads over Noah Sewell. Why him over some other?
Well, they drafted him because he didn't do anything in the preseason. I think we're missing a name here unless he got cut.
Baskerville.
Oh, Baskerville.
Yeah.
Because when we started the show, there were 6 linebackers left, Baskerville being the 6th.
Okay.
But
so surprised?
The one guy can play Mike and Will. Ogbog Minia or whatever say his name. But Baskerville, all he does is make plays. He did the same thing last 2 years.
Yes.
Makes plays in the preseason.
And a special
Another guy, though, you know, I hate to say this, but it plays into it.
Mm-hmm.
You go back and you look at his workout numbers, very, very, very average, where the other guys are way up here.
So who's got the average numbers? Baskerville?
Yep.
Okay.
Like almost a 4.8 guy.
Mm. There's a lot of emphasis paid on those metrics. I mean, 4.8 guys, usually you don't even see them in camp. But they got ball skills. They've got instincts for the game.
What's his
Micah? M-I-C-A.
I'm gonna look it up here.
Yeah. You look that up, and I will.
I can do that stuff now when I'm not on the camera because my camera doesn't work.
Isn't that great?
I know.
We can do this for the next few weeks. We need a production assistant at the show. That's all we need. By the way, to everyone supplying us information in the chat room, led by Sports Chicago Style, J2K, Evie, and everyone else that has told us what's going on outside our broadcast here, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I was going to say something like I owe you, but I got nothing to give you. So, the 3 specialists, according to Sports Chicago Style, are Cairo Santos, punter Torrey Taylor, and long snapper Patrick Scales. The question
is going down. We know that.
Yes.
So
that is the issue.
4.76 is what I got from a pro day.
Okay. Well, that's not terrible.
Didn't go to the combine.
Oh, okay. Wow. They didn't even get invited to the combine. All right. And then Sports Chicago Style says all 18 players selected in the 5th round or higher in Ryan Post's first 3 drafts as Bears general manager made the initial 53-man roster. Now, is that a testament to his loyalty to those players, Greg, or do you think that's a testament to he's done good on day 3?
Combo the both.
Okay.
You liked him enough to draft him, and when you draft somebody, it's not one guy's opinion; it's a consensus within the room, and so the scouting department is buying in, and the coaching staff is buying in, and so then it's like, okay, we wanted him. You wanted them. We drafted them. Now it's your job to make them a player.
Yep. Develop, draft, and develop. All right, let's see. What else do I got here? Sports Chicago Style says, on Wednesday, the Bears that's tomorrow, can establish a 16-man practice squad. And I apologize. I thought it was 9, but it is 16 men now, with 6 of those players having unlimited NFL experience. They can also claim players who have been waived by other NFL teams. You can confirm that based on your knowledge, Greg?
Yeah, I didn't know what the number was 6. I knew there was there was a number of veterans you can bring in. And when I say veterans, it's like more than 3 years in the league. Not necessarily 3 vested years, but 3 years in the league. So, yeah, that sounds about right. And you can get some waivers on, like 1 or 2 waivers, exceptions later on too. So for some veterans. So really you can get up to 8 on there. And it's really, I think the union likes that because it keeps guys working.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, Bush Hog makes an excellent comment here that Sanborn didn't test well either. But
he's got instincts that make him play about 4 or 5.
Exactly, and like Dick Butkus probably would not have tested well. The poor guy.
Well, no, that's a different era.
Yeah, right. It's a different era, so it would have been tough for him to get drafted. And day 1 or day 2, that's for sure, in my opinion, he probably would have gone late in day 3 based on his testing. Now,
well, number one, they didn't, when Butkus came out, they didn't even have a combine. The first combine was right. January 1985. So now they did some testing before that, but they did pro days, and you'd go to the school and you get a time. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating or lying when, my early days in scouting, they didn't have pro days. You just wanted to work out a kid. You call up the kid and work him out. And it was not unusual to see a guy end up running 2 or 3 times in one day because different scouts wanted to work out the guy and nobody wanted to work him out in front of anybody else. So, like maybe I'd have a guy at 9 o'clock and somebody else had him at 11 and somebody else had him at 2 in the afternoon. And he'd run a 40 for each one of them.
Yeah.
And then the schools, they got wise to it. They go, wait a minute, this is crazy. And they're right. They're right. So then they started doing the pro day thing. But originally then everybody was having at least 2 pro days.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened then is you had, excuse me, you'd have kids maybe skip the first one and go to the second one or vice versa. But you'd have, teams were only going to go to 1. So now you had teams who didn't have information because there were, they sent their guy to the first one and they couldn't get a guy to the second one. And that's how the APT came about, which is the Association of Professional Teams, and everybody's in it. And each team has got like 6 or 7 assigned schools that they have to go to those pro days, and they get the numbers and they send it out to everybody else in the league. So if you're not there, you got the numbers. And I get those every, guy in the league sends me the numbers. I've had those for the last 5 years. I've been getting them, so it's, basically I've got just about every pro, all but 2 from this year. There's 2 late ones, and one was Texas Tech. So because I looked up, I wanted to see what Jalen Hutchings' pro day numbers were. And number one, he probably didn't work out because he was still coming off a knee. But it was like March 29th, and the last date I had anything sent to me was April 1st because most of the pro days were done by then. And I guess the Texas Tech one hadn't been sent in. And then there was one other one. Oh, I think Yale. And Yale did theirs real late, and Amagachi wasn't on it either. Anyway, because he wasn't going to work out.
I see. Okay. We've got questions and comments in the queue from Evie, Dobbsy, Bush, Sports Chicago style, Levante, sophisticated thoughts. But I want to start with this one. Wait, where'd it go? Oh, Levante reminds me that Torrey Taylor doesn't count against the 53-man
Yes, he
roster.
does.
He does? Okay, explain that.
Now,
Because this is cut.
he did not during the preseason, but once
Gotcha.
you're at 53 and he's on the 53 counts.
Okay, so the Bears could have had 91 players in camp.
Yes.
Now
And they took advantage. They took advantage of that. And so they had 91 for a while, but he counts now.
Okay. All right. So thank you for correcting Levante and myself.
Unless you want to put him on the practice squad and cut him,
Yeah,
and
no.
then he doesn't count again on the practice squad.
We don't want to do that. Emmy's asked, she's asked it twice, so we have to answer this. Will we have an 18-game NFL season with 2 byes next year? What do you think, Greg? By the way, I have been pleading for this, 2 byes, even with the 17-game season. We need to let these players replenish themselves, to recharge themselves. 2 byes should be like, I know you hate government interfering, but it should be like a regulation. You can't kill these guys. And so anyways, you said you don't know.
Here's my thought. I have no problem with an 18-game schedule. You're only going to have 2 preseason games.
Right. That's fine.
But if you're going to do it, you better move the start up to Labor Day weekend.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so 1 week early, and the colleges aren't going to like that. But hey, I mean, the Labor Day weekend is traditionally the big start of the college football season. Mm-hmm. We used to play Labor Day weekend, but it's been years and years and years since. I mean, God, probably 35 years since we played Labor Day weekend. It was like we gave it to the NCAA. But if you don't, and you got 2 byes, you're playing regular season games into January.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Tough.
The Super Bowl, not like the combine. Shit, the combine is going to be the middle of March, not the end of February.
Yeah.
Who knows when the hell the pro day? You're probably going to have to move the draft back a week or so. It's just going to change the calendar, which is fine. If they want to change the calendar, that's fine. But I'm just thinking about the weather. Half the teams are, we don't have a dome here yet. So, and they don't have a dome in Buffalo, and they don't have a dome in Green Bay, and there'd be some tough weather. So,
J2K has a good argument here. He said he's heard this argument that suggests all preseason games start in the Hall of Fame game that week. And that's not an extra game. Season starts 1 week earlier, and all the teams get 2 byes. I love that approach. Very
well. I can agree with that. Having that. I mean, in this particular year, it was probably good for the Bears to have that extra.
Oh yeah,
game, but. That said, you can't, if you're going to go to an 18-game schedule, then there only can be 2 preseason games, which is, and you know what? You're never going to see your starters if there's only 2 preseason games.
McFack says only 59 likes and 249 people in the chat. Then let's hit that like button for the former Canisius University halfback, Greg Gabriel.
Halfback. I haven't heard that. No, who uses that term?
Ooh.
Floose.
Oh, really? Okay.
They call their running back a halfback.
I love it.
Their terminology.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, well, remember when I started playing football, it was halfback and fullback.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Those were the good old days. Statue of Liberty play.
But then back then, and this is how old I am, corners were called halfbacks.
Is that
safeties
right?
Were safeties, but corners were called halfbacks.
Defensive halfbacks.
Halfback.
I remember reading that somewhere. Wow. That's a long time ago, Greg. All right, let's go back to our questions here. People anxiously awaiting replies to questions like this one. Sophisticated thought. Paris Campbell has been cut from the Eagles. That would be a good pickup at wide receiver. What do you remember about your scouting of Paris Campbell? And do you think the Bears would want to fool around with the 5 or 6 guys who are currently on the team?
Paris Campbell has really done nothing to distinguish himself. That was a big name coming out of college, but he hasn't done anything worthwhile. I'd have to go look at all the numbers, but he might be on his 3rd team now or something. So no, I mean, who's he? If you're going to claim somebody or bring somebody in, he has to be better than what you have. Okay. And if you're happy with what you got, then don't worry about it. I mean, just to throw out a name because you like the name doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Greg. And I think it's important for all of us to be reminded of, and I know you know this, you don't need to be reminded, but all of us fans, that these guys have spent a lot of time in preseason studying the game plan, learning the culture, and so forth. And so when you're bringing an outsider, you got to go through that whole process again. Can you speak to that and how difficult it is?
I didn't hear your whole question. I was looking up to see if anything happened. I was looking at big tweets.
Yeah, Adam Schefter just released the Bears full list according to Cliff Victoria. So if you want to see the list, you can probably find it there. I will ask you my question later after. Oh, Tavarius Moore is cut. Thank you, Cliff.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either.
Number one is a safety, so and he wasn't as good as the other 4 guys. Let's go into Schefter's account here and see what he's got. Spoiler alert, it says for Hard Knocks. Okay. Micah Baskerville, Brendan Bates, Theo Benedict. So he'll probably go to the practice squad. I thought he got hurt in the opening preseason game. He almost did the splits. Exactly. I thought he might have torn a groin or something. And so I thought he might be a IR guy, but they gave him some pretty decent guarantee money.
Right.
So when you see that, he's going to the practice squad as a lock unless somebody claims him, and nobody's going to claim him because he hasn't played. So that means that, that guarantee gets offset, towards the practice squad money.
Okay.
Jake Curran, we know that. Carl Jones, Leon Jones, Jamry Chroma, Cameron Lyons, Deshaun Mallory, Paul Mawala, Austin Reed, Reddy Stewart, Ro Torrance, Corliss Waitman. Then we got release. So these are veterans, and we know one's coming back. Kari Blassingame, Carlson, Adrian Colbert, Aviante Collins, Byron Cowart, Colin Johnson, Tavares Moore, Brett Rippon, Greg Stroman, placed on reserve injured, Dante Pettis. So he got hurt. So he's done because he's not. And then reserve injured designated for return, Borum and Martin. So let's look at our wide receiver list. Who is the wide receivers? DJ Moore, Tyler Scott, DeAndre Carter, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, and then you got Mr. whatever you want to call him, Invalis Jones, who can play wide receiver and running back.
I think Valis is going to have a
Mr. Versatility. That's the word I wanted.
I think he's going to have a good season. All-purpose yards like 500-600, which would be great for him. All right, thank you for sharing that Schefter's list. I want to get some of these questions before we pull the plug. Roshan, excuse me, somebody had a question about Roshan, which is why I am mixed up here, but let's go with Levante. He says, Greg, what are your thoughts on the offensive lineman Jackson Carman? He stinks, huh? He was released by the Bengals.
Yeah, he ain't very good.
Okay, I love it.
Put it this way: he got his ass whipped against the Bears.
That's
during
right.
the week in practice and in the game.
Did you ever submit a scouting report to Mr. Angelo that just said he stinks? That would have been hilarious. Why'd you waste my time?
I have done a few that, maybe just a few words, and they weren't, choice words, and like, no, don't want them. Forget about them.
Dig those up. We could sell those on eBay for mucho dinero. All right, let's go to Jimmy asks a question that I think everybody's going to be asking for the next few days and into week one. And we probably need a little bit more study of where the roster is and learn what's going to happen in the next few days to clearly answer this question, Jimmy. But I'll get your preliminary thoughts, Greg. What do you think is missing so far on this team?
Maybe another defensive tackle still, because if I knew Pickens was good to go, then I'd say they're all right. But I don't know that, so and it really doesn't matter for this week. It's more for next week. Is he going to be ready to go for practice next week when you get into game week preparation? They're only going to have 2 practices this week, from what I understand, tomorrow and Thursday. Then they're going to have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. The only thing I think they need is maybe have a defensive tackle, and I don't know who the hell is going to play left tackle right now if Braxton goes down. Now, I know the plan is Amagaji, but Amagaji has taken exactly 0 snaps. And he was an FCS level player, which means that at least early on, it would be, what the hell is his name? Matt Pryor, who has played the position. He started at the position, but how good is he? What you want? Can he get you out of a game? Yes. If he's got to play 2 or 3, is that what you want?
Right.
Okay, now if it's a right tackle, or he's got to go, say, right guard, no problem with that. I'm unsure that he can get you on, what you want at left tackle. And he didn't play it. As far as I know, he did not play it in the preseason. Now, if Amagaji had played in the preseason, then we'd know that. But through no fault of his own, he wasn't able to. I thought he might get some reps in this last game, but they decided to hold him out. So,
by the way, maybe we'll ask Andrew Billings that question about Zach Pickens. He's going to be here at the bar room at 6:30 today. The Barfly.
Send me a text, because I got something to do tonight.
Okay, I will send you a text, and I will. Do you have a question for Andrew Billings, the host of the bar room or the Barfly Tailgate Show? Are they're going to be asking Andrew some questions? Would you like them to ask Andrew a question?
He looks like he's a little slimmer. I know what to ask him.
Okay.
The question that nobody will ask: are they playing left tackle, right tackle instead of 1 and 3?
Ah, okay.
Because that's what they did all preseason.
All right. I will.
Depending on the offensive formation, they were playing. Both guys were playing the 1 technique and the 3 technique.
Let's take people got to take shots at our players. 600 all-purpose yards for Valens, 6 catches would be an all-time high. The guy is lucky to be on the roster. Let's hope he makes the best of it. I'm not expecting much. You know what? I think the guy has star potential, but this is it. I'm not playing around. I really, really am not playing around. If he messes up, out the door, you little pixie. All right. I got more questions here. I like to try to get to as many of them as possible. We did that one. Bajan for a 3rd round. You said no. Paris Campbell. Okay. Cornelius, you know better than this. He says, I trade Roshan Johnson before I trade Khalil Herbert. You agree with that?
Roshan Johnson's a complete back. Khalil Herbert is a one-trick pony.
Mm-hmm. I could see them holding on to Khalil.
And I like that one trick now. You give him the ball as a runner, he's pretty darn good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he can't drink. He couldn't block an old lady in a wheelchair. Come on.
What was the other one you said? You couldn't block a whore off a bar stool.
Drunk whore off a bar stool.
Oh, gosh. We're going to have to rate this show R. All right. So I agree with you. Let's not trade any one of them because I got to believe Khalil Herbert's trade value is going to soar by midseason when teams have run out of running backs that they like. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. He's, like I say, he's got some limitations. Mm-hmm. And that is, and part of it is when he's in the game, probably a 75% chance they're going to run the football.
Yeah.
Because he can't block.
Right.
And if we know he can't block, everybody else knows he can't block.
Right.
And that it might be less than 50-50 that he's going to catch the ball if you throw it to him.
Speculation here, or maybe wishful thinking from Funky Bear Down. Do you think we pick up a better punt returner and/or receiver than DeAndre Carter? I saw today somebody. It was your buddy Eric from the Windy City Gridiron. He wondered if Shane Waldron wouldn't be interested in
the guy from
Eskridge,
Seattle.
Right?
Yeah. I have a possibility. You'd have to put a claim in on him,
mm-hmm.
and then because I think he's not invested that. I don't think.
Right.
If you want to look it up, you can find out when he came into the league.
I can't do that.
But I think he has to go through waivers, and then you can put a claim in on him.
And the interesting thing is that somebody said, well, he's never run any punts. And then somebody wisely posted that he has run punts, but in preseason games, but never in a regular season game. And the guy posted a highlight of Eskridge running the punt back for a touchdown.
Here's the thing, though, Carter's got some guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
Money talks and bullshit walks, right?
Yeah.
So let me get into his contract here.
D. Eskridge. I'm not finding any. He's a fourth-year wide receiver who was.
He might be if he's got 4 vested years, he's a free agent and doesn't go through waivers. If he's on the waiver wire tonight, I think he goes through waivers.
Yeah, I think you're right. And now I'm remembering this guy. He was from Western Michigan.
Right.
Yeah, and when he came out, everybody was super excited about his speed and big play ability and so forth. So if Shane Waldron saw something in him, he might be a Chicago Bear. That might be a good observation by Eric. I'm not even going to try his last name, by the way.
I'm looking here for DeAndre Carter. Okay, DeAndre Carter got like 450. What is it? 450,000 guaranteed of his contract for this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that
chicken feed.
It is chicken feed, but you got now. They won't update the salary cap until tomorrow. So, but right now they're at 19.2 according to over the cap. So, I thought Borum might not be around, but he, in reality, because of the left tackle situation with the injury to Amagaji, he probably would have been around. And now he's on IR, so now he's collecting, $3.2 million on IR, or at least for 4 weeks on IR.
Well, good for him. That's he had some leverage there. He made the big money, and while it wasn't a good investment by the Bears, it's definitely going to pay out for him. He worked hard. Larry Borum worked hard. He may never see another.
There's no question. He earned that money.
Yes.
He got the incentive, play time based incentive in his contract because he played a lot in his first 2 years. So he literally earned it. But at the same time, he's a backup now, getting $3 million.
Yep. Got to ask you this. Larry T talks about Odunze serving as a punt returner in college. Are you against the number 9 overall pick of the first round playing punt return and exposing
He only
himself?
returned a couple kicks in college. Let's not go overboard here and say he did a lot.
But he is interested in playing that position.
Yeah,
He's asked his coaches.
and they may use him. If he's the best guy they got and he can make some big plays doing it, then why wouldn't you use him there? You can't be afraid. Devin did it for a long time, and he was a starting wide receiver too, starting in his 3rd year in the league.
All right, few more questions here. CJ Williams says, thoughts on Broderick Jones possibly being benched for rookie Troy Fautino. Broderick Jones has fallen out of favor. I know he was highly regarded coming into the league. In fact, here in Chicago, we were all wondering, should it be Broderick?
Well, he went in the first round. He went where he should have went.
Yeah, big tackle from Georgia. He's a good player.
He was a left tackle at Georgia, and he looked like maybe the best left tackle in last year's draft. Just looking at the traits, the athleticism. Now, I didn't watch Pittsburgh last year, so I can't tell you if he played left or right.
Yeah.
Then they drafted the kid from Washington, who's a pretty damn good player himself. And they drafted him in the first round. So you got 2 first-round picks. But if they're both playing at the same position, they're not cutting Jones. The other guy's better. I'm not going to count him out. People want to, start putting the bus label on. That's ridiculous. He was too good.
Yeah, he was definitely.
Now, the only thing you can say that we don't know is what's going on upstairs. And does he have problems? Does he make mental mistakes in the course of a game? And mental mistakes can get your quarterback hurt. And so we don't know the answer to that. But this guy was a starting left tackle for a national championship college football team. He was taken pretty high for a reason.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people who had him real high. So like everybody. So let's not close the door on somebody. Yep. Don't forget you got a new offensive coordinator and a new scheme.
Arthur Smith.
And he was drafted to play in a different scheme.
Right.
They got Arthur Smith there now.
Is it Arthur? Yeah, it is Arthur, right?
Arthur Smith is there now. So, and that they could have changed their, I don't know this because I don't know what the hell they're doing there, but are they playing in a different type scheme where the kid from Washington is a better fit than Jones is?
Oh, okay. I got 2 more questions starred, and let's see if we can get these in. D. Starren asked an intriguing question. Are there roster cap casualties being cut today? Is the thinking by general managers, hey, this guy is kind of tied with this guy, but he's going to make a lot more money. I'm going to cut the veteran and save $300,000 or $3 million or whatever it is. Does that happen, Greg?
Yeah, it happens. Especially if it's pretty even, you're going to go with the younger player. Could I say that happened today with the moves today? Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I'd say no. But it does happen in the NFL. And then last question, Armon Watts. Is he any good? Because he's been released by whatever team he was playing for. Have you scouted him at all?
I don't recall Armon Watts.
It's a great name. But that's how I used to scout players when I was like 8, 9 years old, buying Pro Football Weekly. If they had a cool name, I wanted them to play for the Bears. I would not have been a good scout, that's for sure. All right, Greg, any final thoughts here? What can we expect over the next 24 hours? Because it's going to be very active, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be active around the league.
Yeah, right.
How active it's going to be here remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
If Scales, if Big G's right, and Scales is indeed the guy going on IR tomorrow, it doesn't have to be tomorrow. They have to have somebody to replace him. And that somebody has got to be a snapper. So now, theoretically, you could wait if you're going to put him on IR, and let's say you're going to bring back the snapper that you just cut earlier today. You can put that guy on the practice squad and then elevate him.
Mm-hmm.
And then and keep Scales, depending on the injury to Scales. If he's only going to miss 2 games, you can do that. Put the guy on the practice squad, elevate him for the game, and then send him down the road when Scales is healthy. So it really depends on what the injury is and how long he's going to be out. But if he's going to be out 4 weeks, I'm going to say that the new guy isn't here yet. Yet to be determined who that player is.
And we could even remind me because I forget, even going into next week, there could be some substantial moves done in terms of.
I don't know about substantial, but you could have you could have something going on. I mean, they're pretty heavy at some positions when you look at the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But then you could, being that they're on the roster now, you can, there's ways you can manipulate it now to get them on the, on the practice squad or whatever, or put them down on IR. But it'll be, I'm fairly convinced that the roster will probably have 2 to 4 changes between now and a week and a half from now when we get ready for the opening game.
Indeed. By the way, is it too early to get a prediction from you on what the record will be and will the Bears be in the playoffs? You want to wait a while, or do you want to issue a thought now?
You got a rookie quarterback. I'm not going down that road because he played good in the preseason. And people say, well, they did it in Houston last year. Well, yeah, that was Houston last year. And this is Chicago this year. And it's a different team and it's a different division they're in. And you got to see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a chance? Yeah. Do I expect the team to be a lot better than last year? Absolutely. A lot better than last year. Do I expect a winning record? Yeah, because they could have had a winning record last year. They blew 3 games in the fourth quarter. But it's how quickly does Caleb? The players are there. It's how quickly does Caleb assimilate to the National Football League in real games, not preseason. Now in preseason, he looked pretty good. He looked, I think, from a maturity level beyond his years. And little stuff you find out, and what he's doing on the side. The guy wants to win. He wants to be a great quarterback. So that's all the case. And he's doing all the right things. But still, you go back, Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He threw 29 interceptions as a rookie.
Yep.
Rookies are going to be rookies.
Unfortunately, that is the case.
Troy Aikman's another Hall of Famer that stunk as a rookie.
Oh my gosh!
And you can go through a litany, but now you can come back. The game has changed a little bit, but Andrew Luck threw for over 4,000 yards as a rookie for the Colts, and they got to the playoffs. They went first pick in the draft to the playoffs. Guy in San Diego, Herbert, they don't go to the playoffs, but he threw for over 4,000 yards as a rookie. Now, it's tough throwing for 4,000 yards here. It has nothing to do with, is the guy able to do it? It's what's the weather going to be like in December? Right. Because there might be a game when you just can't throw the damn football. So part of it is that, not the capability of it. You know, when they get in that dome stadium, wherever it is and whenever it is, you're going to see all these records go out, you know, get blown away. It's going to be a whole you're not going to be worrying about the wind coming off Lake Michigan.
Yeah, I have one question for you before I let you go. I know I always do this to you. I'm so sorry.
I know. One turns out. Well, I got to mark this down. One question. That'll be now 3 more from now. We'll have it. But
that's right. Now I forgot what the goddamn question was. But it had to do with
dementia.
Oh my gosh, yes. My mom had it, so now I'm starting to wonder. Did they pass? Is that passed down?
My older sister has it. She's only 2 years older than me, and that's that's a little scary.
Yeah, that's very scary, and it impacts the entire family. So, Jason says the weather will be glorious in December, Greg, because I'm coming to Chicago. Then, all right, Jason, all the way from the UK, coming to Chicago in December.
Where he is, the weather's never good.
That's right. So.
No, I'm kidding, Jason. What was that movie that Kevin Costner was in?
Kevin Costner, okay.
Robin Hood.
Oh, Master Antonio. I forgot her first name.
But anyway, the one guy he's with, he's going, the godforsaken weather ever good here?
Yeah. I got to find that line because that's a good sound effect to have. Bush Hog saying, I think we need to sign another long snapper. You expect the guy that dropped today is going to be re-signed for a week, right?
I mean, I don't know. Is he the guy they want? You know, they could very well, like I say, it'd be on the waiver wire tonight. They could have brought in guys today and try out, had a mass tryout. Could be tomorrow, you know, or whatever, and bring in guys that are on the street to snap, and then maybe sign one of those guys.
Yeah,
might be a snapper that was cut today or over the last couple of days that they think is better than the guy. I can't even think of the guy's name where they cut today because he's only been here a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I just had it on the screen. Cameron Lyon.
Cameron Lyon. So. You know, it could be him, might not be him. I would say that it's less than 50-50 that it is him, but it also wouldn't shock me if it is him because, you know, if they feel he can go into a game and do a good job and you know, throw the ball back there accurately. It's got to be accurate and the timing's got to be right. He's got to have some good zip on it. There were a couple high snaps in the preseason, but nothing too crazy when he was doing it. And Taylor did a good job. There's one that I can think of that was up here on an extra point, and he did a good. It might have been a field goal, but Taylor did a good job handling it. So. I went like that thinking that we're on camera and we're not on camera. So you don't know what the hell I did. Up above his head.
I was imagining it. Cliff Victoria and a number of other people has reminded us that Amari Watts was a member of the Chicago Bears in 2022. He played a few games. He was picked up from the Vikings and then went back to
the defensive lineman?
Yes.
No. No, I remember that name. No.
Who would the hell would remember him? He was so bad. He actually had a couple.
If they thought he'd still be here if they thought something of him.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? I hate to pick up my fellow Chicago podcasters, but they'll pick up Joe Blow. The Bears will pick up Joe Blow off the streets. And then I will see on YouTube and on my audio podcast, Bears signing Joe Blow. He is going to transform this team. Like, this is Joe Blow. He's not going to do anything other than blow. So stop with that. Everybody's
there is a reason he's on the streets.
Yes, exactly. It's like there's a reason why he's an undrafted free agent. There's a reason why he wasn't picked until day 3. And yes, you see these headlines on these podcasts. Transformative player coming to the Bears. He had 18 sacks at Division 2A. It's like, who cares? He's not going to do shit because that's usually what happens. He doesn't do anything. Anyway, that is it for our show. Andrew Billings will be here at 6:30 on the Butterfly Tailgate Show. That's Central. And then I will be back at 9 p.m. with Johnny Santucci and Vinny Parisi. Dan Aguirre has the night off. Greg, any final words?
Nope. Let's just, see what happens the next couple of days. Next week, we got a real pregame show, I guess.
Yeah.
Game week.
Love it.
Bring on the Tennessee Titans.
By the way,
made a trade today there was that Rams linebacker, was their leading tackler, who fell out of favor for some reason with the Rams, probably money. And Tennessee traded for him today. They had a guy get hurt in their last preseason game. So it might have been their last preseason game, but he got hurt during the preseason. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that guy ends up starting against the Bears next week.
Mm-hmm. By the way, do you want to regularly do Monday now, since they'll probably be playing 15 games, 14 games on Sundays?
Yeah, unless they're doing a Monday nighter. All
right, so I got a special news for everybody. It's going to be Greg Gabriel on Mondays, and then followed by Mike North, who is going to come back to the bar room during the Bears football season so he can talk about Mitchell Trubisky.
Is he over that yet?
I don't know. late last season, he scolded Mitch for kind of accepting his third string status with the Steelers. And so I think he might be over it, but I don't think he's a Caleb fan yet. He has to be shown. He'll be complaining about Caleb, at least.
Mitchell did not. Now he's dinged up now, yes. But he did not have a very good preseason for Buffalo.
No. So it's starting to look like Mitchell's career is shortening very quickly here. I don't think
he's made pretty good amount of change. So
yes, he's got a beautiful wife, and I think he started a family. So maybe it's best that he looks for a broadcasting job somewhere. Whatever. Oh, by the way, I want to let everybody know you got to do this for us. For Greg and myself, do the thumbs up on YouTube, do the bell, make sure you're subscribed, and then also let other people know about what we're doing here on this great show named
GTF.
There you go. Gabriel Talks Football. Greg, we'll see you next week, brother.
Okay, buddy. See you later.
Bye-bye.